Hi again, my name is Dr. Carraway-Stage. I'm an assistant professor of nutrition science at East Carolina University. This video is part of a series of short presentations describing how to write a research manuscript for the first time. As a quick reminder, I do tend to focus on nutrition research using human subjects, although most of the content is pretty broad to other fields. If you are from a different field, you might want to just double check, compare and contrast the ideas I talk about with what's accepted in your field. So the next few minutes, I want to talk a little bit about how to go about writing your methods. The primary purpose of the methods is to provide the reader with a clear and precise description of how the research is actually being done. In some cases, it is appropriate to provide rationale for specific procedures that have been chosen, so be aware of that. You do want to also write your methods with enough detail so that the work can be repeated by others. So the key here is reproducibility. And you want the reader to be able to judge if the results and conclusions that you draw in your manuscript are valid. So it's really important that you provide enough detail here. For these reasons also, it's imperative that your section is clear and orderly. It has to be very clear what you did. Enough detail to be reducible and understandable. So reduce any confusion and ambiguity that the reader might perceive from your writing. There are some challenges because of this to writing the methods section. Madison, a nutrition science student, outlines some of her challenges.
Keeping language understandable and explaining what things were, because if someone were to read the brief that doesn't know what all the terms mean, well, they wouldn't know what our methods were. So explaining that step by step, but not in too much detail either. I guess kind of giving enough, but not too much.
So it's helpful to structure the methods. So you might be asking yourself what exactly goes in a methods section. You really should describe your materials, describe the research protocol or the research design, talk about how the data was collected, and also talk about your data analysis section. In the data analysis section, this bullet down here, you want to describe how your data was analyzed and how it's going to be presented in the results section. This should describe statistical tests that you use. For instance, it could be descriptive or inferential type of statistical tests. Generally, you also set your significance level at which you determine statistical significance. Generally, 0.05 is accepted or most common. And then also, when you're working with human subjects, the methods section should also include a declaration of the university that you're at. In our case, East Carolina University's Institutional Review Board statement, so that your research has been reviewed by the board and it was approved in terms of the protocols and the methods that you used. This statement should be presented towards the end of your methods section. And is really important for inclusion. Research should not be conducted or published without these approvals. And so it's very important that for the reader, you provide them with this information. Now, the things like the significance level and IRB approval, these would have happened way on the front end. So you should already have these things established at this point in the writing process. Now, if you're struggling on where to start, the methods section is actually one of the best places to start writing your research manuscript. Try writing the methods section and then the results discussion and introduction. This is useful because we have information already for what we did. We know what we did to conduct our research. We have, at this point, generally our data, so we know what analyses we ran. And so it's extremely useful to start here because most of this work is completed, or all of this work is completed at this point, and then move forward. Now, the most important goal for this section, though, is to really be clear as possible. You want to provide as much detail as you can without being too detailed, and provide references when appropriate. So in those cases that you wanted to provide rationale for the types of methods you used, particularly if it was like a standard methodology. Writing this section, though, you should be aware, is time-consuming. It's an important section that should be very clear and understandable. So you want to try to receive as much feedback as possible during this process so that you can identify sections that maybe aren't clear or that are missing information, and ways that you can potentially improve the overall style of this section to maybe make it more clear. Use this outline that the bullets that I've given you here for what to include sort of as an outline. Maybe start with describing your materials, talk about your research design, and then how the data was collected. And then include your IRB statement and how you analyze the data. When you're constructing your methods, this might be a useful flow to follow. So thank you for joining us on the methods. Our next video will look at how to construct your results section.